Welcome back to Mandible Judy Explainer Videos, Part 3. I can't keep track. So this one, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the same episode as we did last time, episode 4 of season 2. And we're going to look at the effects for Casey kind of going into his trance. And I had some ideas about how I basically wanted him to be, the sound to kind of close in on him. So it sounded like he was hitting a kind of a vacuum of his consciousness, and reality around him didn't exist anymore. And then it would come back and he'd find himself later in the day or a next day, he'd lose time. That was the idea. So I had to figure out a way to get that across sonically. And with some dialogue, of course. Dialogue is always the way you get any exposition done in an audio drama. So, but it's nice to be able to do as much as you can with sound design. It's really fun as a challenge. And I really love doing it in Pro Tools. So this is, by the way, since I'm, COVID sheltering at the moment, I'm limited here to Pro Tools on a laptop, and it's a very limited 16-track only system. So with just a little cheapo interface. So, but I found some workarounds for a lot of that stuff. And one of them, this is really powerful, and it's something a lot of people don't use because they don't have to, because they've got unlimited tracks. But if you can avoid laying more tracks, I just hate laying a million tracks and having to hunt through them. No matter how well you organize them, it's still, you have to look through it and figure it out. So here's an example. So any plugin that you put on a track, right? Like let's say this EQ right here, you can see that it's bypassed at the moment. If you click this little auto button right here, you can add all the parameters to automation in the track. So right now, this one I've just added master bypass. So if you look at the track information over here, what you're looking at waveform right now, I can go to volume, mute, pan left, pan right, etc. But then I've got the sends, and I've got the parameters of the plugins. So here I've got the master bypass of that very plugin. And you can see, if you look at this, that it's bypassed. This one is actually bypassed for the all but one little section. And you can see here where the time loss happens. It happens twice in the episode. And so what we're going to do first is we're going to listen to it. So here's the effect. I'm going to start a little bit earlier so we get some of the dialogue effects included.
Casey, what's wrong? Casey! Is he having a stroke?
I don't think so.
Here, these should be small enough.
Yeah, good. Snap.
So you can see what happened there, I think. If you've listened to the episode, you'll know what happens there. Casey basically he's in a kind of a trance. He's saying non-human words, chanting them, and then he kind of loses consciousness. So a few things happen. One is that the dialogue of Connor and Fuzi get increasingly muffled, like he's no longer hearing them. And also I add reverb to each of those tracks as progressively. So we've got a one-band EQ that I've automated the frequency on. So you can see the frequency, the center frequency of the EQ. It's a low-pass filter. And watch now we can see both of these, the send and the EQ happening as on Connor's voice as it goes past.
Casey, what's wrong? Casey! Is he having a stroke?
I don't think so.
Okay, so you can see that. And same thing's going on with Fuzi. So you can take my word for it. Here's what the track looks like. Here's the one band EQ frequency sweep. So I just went down, to somewhere around the middle. What is that? 1.18 kilohertz, and started totally open. So it was not a filter at all, and just ramped it down in the midst of that one line. You can see it there. I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see it better. So you can see that line.
Casey! Is he having a stroke?
So you just really hear it on "Is he having a stroke?" And the same thing is happening. Fuzi is really
I don't think so.
muffled throughout here. So that's the first part, right? The second part of this effect is the ambience, and I think, is the music going through there too? Yeah, the music is also going through that
I don't
that
think so.
effect. So here's first, I'll show you the music. Oh, no, maybe not. So I didn't end up sending it through that effect at all. So because I just had to end before the effect starts. So what's happening is the ambience is going to 7 and 8, and
I
that
don't think so.
is I've already got it sent to 7 and 8 throughout this whole section. So let's just see. Yeah, so 7 and 8. Yes, that's the level. So throughout this whole section, then I ramp it out at the end of the effect. So that means it's building up reverb, but we're not hearing it. Okay. The sound effects similarly are probably doing something like that. Let's see. Which one is it? There it is. Yeah, it just stays affected throughout, and I'm just kind of ramping in and out the volume of the return. And then this one is sound effects. There's nothing there, so we're not busting that to anything. And then critically, what I'm doing here is I'm ramping up the level of the effects return as the scene progresses, then ramping it down suddenly for that vacuum effect, and then ramping it back in for a moment to give you that when he returns to reality. Then there's also automated effects on the time loss effects return, right? So the reverb, I think, is not automated. The distortion is automated. So let's look at the distortion. So here's the drive. So if you watch this from here, you can see where it's already pretty distorted here, and it ramps up throughout that section. Similarly, the vintage filter cutoff is changing. So let's look at that real quick. So this is what gives it that vacuum effect, the distortion and the filter cutoff accompanying that reverb. So they're after the reverb plugin, right? So the reverb is consistent, and the distortion is constantly distorting it, and then getting more intense as the effect comes on. And then the vintage filter is starting totally open, and then changing the cutoff it's totally all the way up to the highest frequency, so it's not cutting off anything, and then it ramps through the frequencies to give you that swallowing effect.
Here, these should.
And then you've got it opening again. Let's go back here where we don't have any effect to listen to. So you have it opening it again to kind of get this feeling of coming back to reality. So that's it, basically. It's a bunch of effect sends, a bunch of automation in the tracks. I probably could have done this more efficiently, but what I did was I did it quickly, and sometimes doing things quickly allows your technical aspects to keep pace with the creative process, and you come up with something cooler. And then you can always go back and tweak it later, which I always do. So I tweaked this probably a few times before I got the exact ramps that I wanted for the effects and everything. Did exact combinations of things. I tried a bunch of different things. So that's it. That's the time loss SFX in episode 4 explained. Thanks for watching. Check out the series at mandible-judy.com. And if you're interested in becoming a funder, go to patreon.com/mandible-judy and check it out. Thanks again for listening. Stay safe.